Aisha sat on the edge of her bed, her fingers tracing the delicate embroidery of her wedding dupatta. The house still smelled of fresh roses from the ceremony, yet an unsettling emptiness filled the air. It had only been a week since she married Rayhan, the man she had dreamed of building a life with, yet here she was, watching him pack his suitcase for an urgent work trip. "I'll be back soon," Rayhan assured her, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Just a few weeks, and then we'll make up for the lost time." Aisha forced a smile, nodding, but inside, a dull ache settled in her chest. She had always known Rayhan's work demanded travel, but she hadn't expected it so soon. The thought of spending nights alone in a house that still felt unfamiliar made her uneasy. Arman, Rayhan's younger brother, leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Don't worry, Barbie. I'm here. You won't even notice he's gone." His voice carried a playful reassurance, one that Aisha found oddly comforting. She chuckled, shaking her head. "You and your jokes, Arman." But as days passed, she realized his presence wasn't just amusing, it was a relief. The sprawling house felt less empty with Arman around. He would make her tea in the mornings, insisting it tasted better than hers. They would talk over meals, share stories about Rayhan's childhood, and laugh about things that had nothing to do with marriage or responsibilities. One evening, as they sat on the terrace, Arman sighed, looking out at the darkening sky. "You know, it's strange," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "Rayhan and I grew up under the same roof, but sometimes I feel like I hardly know him." Aisha glanced at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his tone. "Why do you say that?" "He's always been the responsible one, the one everyone admires," Arman admitted. "Me? I'm just the younger brother, the one no one takes too seriously." Aisha frowned. "That's not true." He chuckled, shaking his head. "It's okay. I've made peace with it." Something about his words unsettled her. She had always seen Arman as carefree, full of life. But beneath that charm, there was a loneliness she hadn't noticed before. That night, as she lay in bed, Aisha realized something else. For the first time since Rayhan had left, she wasn't thinking about him. Instead, her mind lingered on Arman, his voice, his words, and the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. She turned on her side, shutting her eyes tightly. It was nothing. Just a passing thought. Nothing more. But the days continued, and the passing thought refused to pass. Aisha found herself looking forward to Arman's company more than she cared to admit. His presence filled the long, empty hours of the day, making the house feel less like a hollow space and more like a home. He had a way of making things light, effortless. But beneath the surface, something unspoken lingered. One afternoon, as she poured tea, Arman leaned against the counter, watching her with a small smile. "You know, Barbie, you're different when Rayhan isn't around." She looked up, startled. "What do you mean?" "You laugh more. You seem freer." His gaze held something unreadable, something she wasn't sure she wanted to understand. She forced a laugh, brushing off the comment. "That's ridiculous. I'm the same." But later, when she sat alone in her room, his words wouldn't leave her mind. Was she different? Or had she just never noticed it before? The next evening, a sudden storm knocked out the power. With only the flickering candlelight between them, Aisha and Arman sat in the living room, the rain beating against the windows. "You scared?" he teased, leaning back on the couch. She scoffed. "Of the dark? Please." He smirked but said nothing, his fingers tapping against the wooden armrest. The silence stretched, heavy yet charged. "You know," he finally said, his voice quieter than usual, "I used to think love was simple. That it was about choosing someone and sticking by them." Aisha's breath caught. "And now? Now I think it's more complicated than that." The words sent a chill down her spine. She should have changed the subject, laughed it off, said anything, to break the moment. But she didn't. Instead, she felt it too. The shift. The quiet acknowledgement of something they both knew but couldn't say. Then, as if sensing they were on dangerous ground, Arman leaned forward and picked up the candle, the flame flickering between them. "Guess we'll just have to wait this out," he said, his voice back to normal. She nodded, exhaling a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That night, she lay awake for hours, her mind spinning with thoughts she had no right to entertain. Aisha tried to convince herself that nothing had changed, that the air between them wasn't charged with something unsaid. But the way Arman's eyes lingered a moment too long, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her, it was impossible to ignore. She kept her distance, staying in her room more often, avoiding unnecessary conversations. But Arman noticed. "You're different," he said one evening, leaning against the doorway. She busied herself arranging cushions, refusing to meet his gaze. "You're imagining things." He didn't argue, but he didn't leave either. "I never meant to make you uncomfortable." She sighed, finally looking at him. "I know." And she did. Arman wasn't the problem. It was her own thoughts, her own weakness. But temptation had a way of finding cracks, no matter how hard she tried to seal them. That night, as she walked past the study, she found Arman sitting on the floor, his head resting against the couch, eyes closed. A single lamp cast a dim glow over the room. "Everything okay?" she asked hesitantly. He opened his eyes, startled. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just thinking." She hesitated before stepping inside. "About what?" He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling deeply. "About how some things are never meant to happen, but they do anyway." The room felt smaller, the silence heavier. She should have walked away. But she didn't. She sat down across from him, folding her legs beneath her. "We both know this can't go anywhere," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Arman nodded, his jaw tightening. "I know." But neither of them moved. Then, Aisha's phone rang. The screen lit up with Rayhan's name. Reality slammed back into place. She scrambled to her feet, stepping away as if burned. She started, but Arman cut her off. "I get it." His voice was resigned, almost hollow. She left without another word, gripping her phone like a lifeline. When she answered, Rayhan's voice was warm, full of love, completely unaware of the storm raging inside her. And in that moment, she knew if she stayed on this path, she would destroy everything. The next morning, Aisha avoided Arman completely. She didn't step into the kitchen when she knew he was there, didn't respond when he called her name in passing. Distance was the only way to erase what had almost happened. But avoiding him didn't erase the guilt. It lingered, gnawing at her, making her question the person she thought she was. Later that evening, she found him sitting on the terrace, staring at the sky. He didn't turn when she approached, but she knew he sensed her there. "We can't undo what we felt," Arman said quietly. "But we can choose what we do next." She swallowed hard. "And what do you choose?" He finally looked at her, and for the first time, she saw it clearly, the same conflict, the same regret. "I choose to walk away." Aisha exhaled, relief and sadness intertwining. "Me too." And just like that, something shifted. The weight lifted, but in its place was an ache, a quiet grief for something that never truly began yet had to end. That night, Rayhan returned home. His embrace was warm, familiar, safe. Aisha clung to him, inhaling the scent of the man who had given her nothing but love and trust. Arman stood at a distance, watching, then silently walked away. The next day, he packed his bags and left. No explanation, no grand goodbyes, just a quiet departure, leaving behind nothing but an unspoken understanding. Life returned to normal. The house was whole again. But deep inside, Aisha knew a part of her had changed. Some temptations don't need to be acted upon to leave a scar.